This is an art installation from 1917, named as Fountain. It's just a urinal placed on his back, with the artist signing his name to the right. But that's not the real artist who made it. The artist that actually made it was Marcel Duchamp, a French painter and a sculptor. So why did he sign the piece with a fake name? His idea with this piece was to create an antidote to what he called retinal art, which is just art that was visual. Basically, he wanted to seek other forms of expression. Fountain is just one part of his art collection called the readymades, that started out in 1914. There's actually a lot more in this collection, but the Fountain fascinates me the most, maybe because on the surface it could be interpreted as a big fuck you to art, sort of an insult, challenging the notion of what is and is not considered art. And as I dug deeper, it became more clear that maybe that's exactly what he was going for. The Fountain is just a urinal that he bought from a general store in New York. He didn't sculpt it himself, nor did he use his real name to sign it. And my first question, like most people in the jury of the exhibition that ended up rejecting the piece in 1917, was, why is this considered art? The answer is pretty simple, because the artist chose to make it an artwork. By putting the importance in the idea and not the object itself, Marcel simply placed the urinal on its back, stripping it of its conventional use. But that's still kind of odd. Over the years, he added more pieces to readymades, for example, a bottle rack, a snow shovel, and a bicycle wheel. These, along with the Fountain, is considered to be an exceptional example of Dadaist art. What is Dadaist art, you ask? Oh, it's just a cute little art movement that started out with the opposition of artists towards war. Artists that fled their hometown in 1916 to the neutral zone of Switzerland and formed a group that originally started out as an anti-war, but soon became a sort of anti-everything movement, posing arguments against ideals and regulations. You know, just the usual artist stuff. Now, because Dada is against everything, it also rejects meaning itself, which is why the name Dada doesn't really mean anything. Duchamp's Fountain and other readymades became a radical act, questioning the very nature of art. This shift from viewing art as a product of craft to a product of concept would profoundly influence future generations of artists. In essence, Duchamp's work opened up new avenues for interpreting mundane objects and their potential as art. Now, this concept applied to everything, and if there was one artist that went truly all out on this notion, it has to be Piero Manzoni. Now, again, I don't know if I'm butchering the names, but I'm sorry if I am. He was born in 1933 and died in 1963. Throughout his lifetime, he made a lot of art pieces, but nothing screams anything can be art more than artist shit. A collection of 90 tin cans, each supposedly containing 30 grams of his feces, and the best part was that he priced them to match the exact current value of gold and fluctuate with it. According to Manzoni, anything that an artist can create can be considered art. So in essence, Manzoni's shit was as pure as his art could get. It was one of his most intimate pieces. His other pieces, like Artist's Breath, followed a similar notion. It was a balloon that he filled with his breath and charged people for the amount of his breath it contained. Eventually, all of his breath would leave the balloon, leaving just the deflated rubber and a question. Is that still art? Because if its only value were the breath it contained, once it has left the balloon, does it still retain the original value? When Piero Manzoni's artist shit first appeared, it caused a stir. I mean, obviously, someone selling their shit doesn't really happen every Tuesday. Many dismissed it as a work of a madman or a mere prankster. Ironically, the inspiration for this controversial piece may have come from a seemingly harmless comment. Manzoni's father, who owned a cannery, reportedly once remarked, "Your work is shit." This seemingly offhand criticism may have sparked the idea, that would become one of the most contemporary art's most provocative creations in the future. Who knows? Or was it just Manzoni going through a very rebellious phase that lasted for the better part of his very short life? One can hardly tell. Like, I was very uncertain that the cans even contained this shit or not. Because in an age of commodification, Manzoni's intention was to make people buy his art not because of the object itself, but because it carried his essence with it. Whether or not the people were able to verify that. And if the buyer did open the can to see if they actually have his shit or not, Manzoni would have already achieved what he wanted. For this one, his inspiration was obviously Marcel Duchamp's The Readymades. Coming back to Marcel, there's this piece. Created from a cheap postcard of Mona Lisa, Marcel drew a mustache and a goatee onto. It was titled as LHOOQ, which, when said in French, sounds like... Okay, I'm not going to attempt that. I'm just gonna make my friend say it.
LHOOQ.
That basically translates to "she's hot in the butt." Was Marcel the biggest troller of his time? I mean, the readymades would be the most faithful testament to that if that was the case. And these are just a few examples of Dadaism. A more modern example of this movement would be the song called Zimbra by Talking Heads. The lyrics don't really mean anything, but it's definitely groovy. An artist called Tristan Tzara even wrote instructions on how you can write your own Dada poem or song. Take a newspaper, take some scissors, from that paper choose an article of the length you want your poem to be, cut out the article, next carefully cut out each word of the article and put them all in a bag, shake gently, take out each cutting and place them one after the other. And there you go, now you have your very own Dadaist poem. And at this point I was beginning to question the question I had about art, if I'd even be able to answer it or not. Before this video began, I set out to find why art is so absurd. I know this video is like only 6 minutes long and it's been like hundreds of years of people trying to find the answer to this question. But if art itself is a reflection of the artist, a mere vessel of the creator's essence, then the answer is simple. Art is absurd because we are absurd. But that's not something that everyone's going to agree with, except Manzoni. Although it would be hard to get his opinion on this with him being all dead and everything. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you like this video, and I'll see you in the next one.